Hello everyone, my name is Sean Goldsmith and I'm the North America Marketing Manager here at Bonitasoft. I'm very excited to be with Philippe Ozil, our BPM evangelist today. Today, Philippe's going to talk about Bonita BPM 7. We're in the middle of a launch and it's very exciting times here at Bonitasoft with a lot of new things going on within the company and within Bonita BPM. Philippe has been working at Bonitasoft for several years now, since 2011. He's worked on hundreds of BPM projects in over 10 countries. He really is truly a BPM expert. And in the last year or so, instead of going on sites and working on these BPM projects, he's been our chief evangelist. So throughout the world, he's been speaking on BPM and Bonitasoft and the new capabilities coming out with our product this month. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Philippe Ozil.
Thank you, Sean, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. So I'm here today. I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm here today to speak about Bonita BPM 7, which is our new upcoming major release. And in today's webinar, which is going to be a short webinar, half an hour webinar around, we're going to present you how it is easy to create engaging, modifiable applications with Bonita BPM 7. So at any time, you may ask questions. I will take the questions at the end of my presentation. Alright, so here's the agenda of our presentation. I'd like to share with you the product vision and roadmap for Bonita BPM 7 and beyond. So there's a whole new strategy for 7X series of releases that I'm going to share with you. Then I will talk about what we have beefed up in the community edition, because Bonita BPM 7 truly brings some excellent news for our community users. And I will conclude with the set of major innovations that are brought for all kinds of editions in Bonita BPM 7. Right, so without delay, I will start with the first point and I will present you our product vision and roadmap. So I'd like to share with you this, and this is for the scope beyond Bonita 7.0, so this applies for the 7 series. We have decided to focus our product vision on two main aspects for Bonita BPM. The first one is living applications, and the second one is developer heroes. So these are the two main themes we're going to work around in the upcoming releases. The first one, living application, is the principle to allow end users to rapidly build business applications that can easily evolve present data and serve processes. So prior to Bonita 7, it was a lot more challenging to create full applications. Although we were able to create dynamic processes and create applications around those processes, the integration required some work. So now we're going to smooth a bit the line. We're going to help our end users to create business applications that are really going to be related and easy to create around our business processes. So we are going one step further in the creation of custom applications. Then the next major focus is developer heroes. So we're going to place developers at the center of our concern here, and we're going to provide more extensibility and customization options. This means also more tooling also to help them deliver great applications and increase quality of deliveries. So there's a whole set of different features that are going to go to help developers. Some components will be a bit more technical, but this overall will allow us to really go beyond what the product is initially delivering out of the box. So these are the main two themes to remember. Now, how are we going to support this product vision? Well, we have one major thing that is going to help us to do that. That's called decoupling. Decoupling is the main theme. We're just going to drive us through this new series of releases. And here we are going to truly separate our business logic from our business data from our user interfaces. This is the typical MVC pattern, model, view, and controller pattern that you can find here. For business logic, this means process, connectors, script, and actors. This is the C of MVC, the controller part. For business data, well, this is the data model, and here I will introduce some really major features here for separating business data from business logic. And last thing, the user interface, so that's the view of MVC, the V. This deals with pages, forms, look and feels, and navigation. So here will be also a big focus on creating applications, not just the forms on our processes. We'll be able to go much further than that. So this is really the key theme here, decoupling. Now, how are we going to deliver our promises to help you build better business applications, living applications? Well, on the roadmap, we already have a couple of dates here. Right now, we are working on the second release candidate, actually, of Bonita BPM 7, so it's nearly out of engineering for us. And next week, by the end of next week, you'll be able to get your hands on Bonita BPM 7. So this is going to be really a major innovation, and I'll talk to you about details in the upcoming slides. But expect some big news around this release. And by the end of the year, we'll have the first minor version 7.1 available. I'm not going to share more details about the content of 7.1 right now because it's still under discussion, but here's really an overview of the important dates to remember. Alright, so that's for the roadmap and the vision. Now I'm going to talk really about what is new in Bonita BPM 7. What are you going to be able to test in 1 week? The first thing, I'll start with the good news for our community users. This is really something that is going to change their life. We really added some valuable features for our community users. We have changed the way we interact with the community edition and with the subscription editions. So let me bring the good news here. We have downgraded a couple of features that were already available in subscription edition onto the community edition. I have here 3 major features that were not available before and now will be available in community. The first one, and I think that's one of the most important ones, that's the business data model, or BDM as we call it. The BDM is actually something that allows you to design a data model that actually sits outside of your business process. This is pretty convenient, and I'll give you more details on that in the upcoming slides. Next point of focus is our custom pages. So I already got the chance to share those in some past webinars. I've been talking about custom pages in the webinars I did with AngularJS. So all the deliverable I shared in my past webinars are going to be available now to community users also, because they will have access to custom pages. This allows to create custom page that you can integrate into applications. And so this brings me my third point here, applications. So the applications, or living applications, are basically a set of pages that are decoupled from the Bonita portal and that you can compose with custom pages and custom navigation. So this is really something that is dedicated on business, not just generic views anymore. This is something much more powerful. Alright, so let me now give you a bit more details about each of these features, starting with the BDM, Business Data Model. So I'm not going to show the product in this presentation. We're still keeping a bit of a secret around this. We will have another webinar later to explain really and show the demonstration of the product. Here I'm just going to talk about the concepts for now. So the BDM is actually a data model. This is something that allows you to create a data structure and allows you to create custom queries. Now, the advantage of defining your data structure directly in Bonita here is that you'll benefit from underlying services. The persistence of your business objects will be handled by Bonita. So Bonita will ensure that your data is stored and loaded when needed. It will also guarantee that your BDM's business data model will have an independent life cycle from your processes. I don't know for those of you who already designed a couple of processes with Bonita, but up till now in Bonita 5 and 6, we had to put business data outside of processes if we wanted to have several processes interacting with the same business data. Now with BDMs, it's no longer the case, because BDMs will actually store your business data into an external database, dedicated database. And the BDM will do the operations to create the structure and to store your objects for you. What we provide here also is a simplified accessibility. You don't need to learn how to code, write SQL to really have to benefit from BDMs. We have a graphical user interface to perform basic operations such as creating attributes, creating tables, creating custom queries. So you can go, of course, further if you know how to write SQL. And really the power of BDMs is the last point here. BDMs provide for you a set of Java objects and REST APIs. That means you have access in your code, so in Groovy scripts or in custom pages, for example in JavaScript pages, you have access to your business objects without having to write a single line of code. That's very powerful. We have that because BDMs are coupled with Hibernate, so this is a technology that deals with persistence, so it manages all sorts of things you don't have to worry about, like cache or making sure your data is secure, because we have also the security in place with Bonita here to prevent unwanted access. So that's the main novelty here for community users, BDMs. Another new topic here are custom pages, and here with the couple of screenshots you have on this slide, you'll be able to recognize some of my past contributions and some of the others that you haven't seen yet. These are all custom pages. These are things you can design with an external tool using either HTML and JavaScript with maybe JavaScript frameworks such as AngularJS or jQuery, and also you can use Groovy script if you want to code that using a more structured language. So these custom pages you can create outside of Bonita can be retrieved and placed into applications. So you'll have a set of tools that allow you to create navigations of your application and to place these custom page inside those applications. And that brings me again my third new feature for community users, that's applications. So here you have two screenshots on this slide. The one on the right is actually a screenshot of a living application. That's one of the living applications we demonstrated for a major event here. All of this was created with Bonita, and this is what you'll be able to create easily with Bonita BPM 7. What is that? Well, there's basically a menu here with a couple of menu items, and then you have custom pages under it. So the application is basically something that is isolated from the Bonita portal, so where you don't see the generic task list or generic case list. It has a dedicated URL that you can choose. It has customizable access rights, so it's secured, and you can customize pretty much anything that is inside it. So that's really the major turn here. We're going further than processes. We allow you to create really business use. And here, the example I shared with you on this slide is a perfect example. You no longer need to have this, again, generic inbox with no business data visible. Here you can really create business use. This detailing, for example, here it's procurement request. You can really have business data exposed of your processes. So it's really something quite convenient and more user-friendly than just generic task inbox. So these are really the good news that we're gonna, the good features we're gonna deliver to community users. All of that already existed in Bonita BPM 6. This is new now to community users. Now we do have some things that are new for everybody, even subscription users. We have a whole set of major innovations, and here these are really important changes in the product. So let me go over the list here. The first thing I'm going to introduce to you is the UI designer. Well, the UI designer is something that will allow us to create forms and pages. Where in Bonita BPM 7 we have completely changed our form technology. So rest assured, we'll still be able to use legacy forms, so you won't have to migrate those, but when you'll create new forms, you'll be able to benefit from this new tool called the UI Designer. I will give you more details in the upcoming slide. Another new concept that's actually something that enforces the decoupling is called step contract. Step contracts allow us to really isolate the user interface from the business data and the business logic. And I'll explain, of course, what this is in the later slide. Next item are live updates. So We already had some live update capabilities in Bonita BPM 6 for our subscription users, but now we'll have even more live update capabilities, and I will detail those in the upcoming slides. And last point here for everybody, we'll have extensible REST APIs. Up till now, you could only use in Bonita BPM 6 the basic, well, not the basic, but the APIs that came out of the box. Now, with Bonita BPM 7, you'll be able to create your own REST API. So if you want to expose business services, you'll no longer have to develop an external application that sits outside of Bonita. You can directly integrate your calls to external applications within Bonita with extensible or custom REST APIs. So that's it for a summary of the major innovations, and now I'm going to really go deep down into these items, and I'll present you each one of those. Let's start with the first one. The first one here, what you see on this screenshot here is the UI designer. I must apologize, the screenshot is not up to date. We've changed a bit the theme since this screenshot was taken, but the major functionalities are already here. So let me go over this. What you see here is actually something that is web browser based, and this is the environment that will allow us to create forms and pages, so forms for the processes and pages for our applications. This UI designer is, without surprise, based on AngularJS. This is why we've been talking about AngularJS quite a lot in the past months. So there are two main things I'd like to highlight in this screenshot here dealing with AngularJS. I have surrounded some areas in red. The first one at the bottom is page data. So when you create forms with this new technology here, you'll be able to create Angular data, and you can call several types of objects like external API calls. Here we have the all suppliers data highlighted at the bottom. This is a call to a Bonita REST API, so this is going to be pretty simple to implement with the UI design. You'll just have to provide a URL, and the form renderer will take care of fetching your objects, and you'll be able to manipulate those. You'll also be able to create JSON objects, so this is based on JavaScript and JSON syntax. You can create expressions, while you can benefit from any Angular data. And one important thing here, and that's the second zone highlighted on this screenshot on the right side, you'll be able to benefit from two-way data binding from AngularJS. What this means basically is that you declare your data in your page or your form. If you update it somewhere, it gets automatically updated everywhere where there is a reference to this data. So if you change in the first page something, you can benefit from this change in other portions of your form. And new thing here is that we can now specify any property of any widget as an Angular expression. So this means we'll no longer be limited to the few fields we have created as customizable in the form editor. We'll be able to customize everything dynamically. That's a big change. Now, another new technology we have introduced in our UI designer is Bootstrap. This is actually something we have used for being able to do responsive form designs. Responsive form designs will only be available for efficiency and performance users, but even community and teamwork users will benefit from the styling and the templating that Bootstrap provides. Here you have an example of the efficiency feature that allows us to create several views of the same form for different devices, for a phone, for a tablet, for a laptop, and for a big resolution desktop. So we'll be able to adapt pretty much any kind of form for mobile and any kind of devices. The way this works is pretty simple. You have your form. Your form is composed of 12 columns, and you can span components across multiple columns, and depending on which type of view you're in, you can make your component span on more or less columns. Just to give you an overview. Another new thing that comes with the UI designer is custom widgets. This is something also that is really going to change the life of our front-end developers. You'll no longer be limited to the set of out-of-the-box widgets. You'll be able to create custom widgets. Yeah, you heard me right. You'll be able to create custom widgets, and everybody will be able to do so, not just subscription users. Even community users will be able to create custom widgets. So here in this screenshot, we have highlighted an example of a custom widget. Here we have created a set of buttons called list transfer buttons that allow us to switch items from one list to another list. This would allow us to select suppliers from a list of all suppliers and move them to a list of suitable suppliers. So this is an example of one of the many great things you can do by creating custom widgets. Custom widgets, of course, are going to be implemented using Angular.js, and you'll be able also to pull out some external dependencies. So, for example, if you want to create custom widgets that will present charts or integrate Google Maps or whatever, you'll be able to do so with custom widgets. By the way, there will be, I haven't written this on this slide, but there will be also some widgets that are going to be specific to subscription users, and the chart widget is actually one of those. And last key functionality here of this UI designer, actually it's something that is reserved to subscription users. It's called fragments. One of the main limitations of Bonita BPM 6, and actually 5 also, was when you created multiple forms for the same process, for example, you had often to create copies of portions of the forms. So you had some views that didn't change during the process evolution. You were showing references to object and you had to copy paste, and it was very difficult to maintain all of those copies of the same portion of form. So we have designed a new feature here that helps us to do that. Fragments are basically a portion or a group of widgets that are going to be saved independently and can be later injected in multiple forms. So there will be only one copy, and the others will be just pointers to this copy of group of widgets. So you can update your copy on your fragment only in one place, and the update gets reflected in your multiple forms. So this is really a productivity increase here. That's for fragments. So that's all for the major functionalities here of this UI designer. Of course, there's much more to discover, and as we get closer to the release date, we'll share more info on that, but these are really the main new things you'll be able to enjoy next week. And yeah, to mention again this, don't worry if you already have created tons of forms with Bonita BPM 6, you'll still be able to run those legacy forms along with the new ones. There's no need to migrate. You're not forced to migrate. You can still keep those. They are still functional. Now, next functionality that is really new in Bonita BPM 7 is called step contract. Here I have in this screenshot I have a basic process diagram, and here I want to highlight what a contract is. For each of our human tasks in our new process designs, we'll have the ability to create contracts. The contract is something that will bind our human task with our forms. So a contract is basically an interface. It's composed basically of a set of parameters and some validation rules that will allow forms to be submitted and to execute tasks and also to start our process instances. This is very useful for decoupling, and I'll actually explain why when I talk about live updates. But this really separates the logic of the process from the user interfaces, and this ensures that when data arrives in the Bonita execution engine, we're quite sure it is valid. So it prevents invalid data from being submitted in forms and make sure we have all needed information before proceeding. So as I said, step contract is really something that's going to help us to do decoupling, and here I'm going to highlight a bit why. I've been talking about the MVC framework for Model View Controller, and here we have again the big picture. The business logic is the controller, so C. Business data is the model, M, and user interfaces, the forms or pages, are the view B. Now, how do all of these different items relate to each other? Well, you'll have human tasks to serve for a business logic. Of course, you also have automated tasks or the process itself. For the user interface, you'll have forms or pages. And for business data, you'll have BDM, business data model. Now, how are these connected? Well, we'll have the contract that is between the tasks and the forms. We'll have the Java APIs that bind the human tasks to the BDM or automated task or process itself to the BDMs. And for the forms, we'll have the REST APIs. The REST APIs will allow our forms, which are web-based, to query any needed data to be displayed in our forms. So this is the big picture. We have now full decoupling between different components of the MVC framework. Now, this decoupling allows something even better. The advantage of decoupling is that we're now able to live update our process forms. Here I have an example that explains that we have a running process. In this running process, at some point we have a task, human task. The human task is bound with a contract to a form, and we're now able to change the implementation of this form to deploy subsequent versions of this form without being forced to undeploy and redeploy a new version of the process. So basically, if you made a typo in a form, if you're missing some information in the form, with the tooling we provide, this is actually reserved to the Performance Edition, you'll be able to redeploy forms on your processes without having any downtime. So this is really powerful. We're not yet able to change the process logic live, but we're still able to show the views and to change the views of the process live without having downtime. So that's one of the main thing about live updates. I also have an extra point. I forgot to add a slide on that, so I'll just talk about it. It's not related to forms, but it's also related to decoupling. Actually, I'll get back to this one. In this particular screenshot diagram, I shown that we have human tasks that are bound with Java APIs to BDMs. Throughout your process, generally you have a couple of Groovy scripts. So these Groovy scripts can in turn use the Java APIs or use other custom objects. With the new decoupling we have put in place, we are also now able in Performance Edition to live update our Groovy scripts. So if we figure out that there is a bug in our business logic, in our execution of the different scripts there, we're able to fix those scripts and resume execution without having to redeploy an entire new version of the process definition. So this brings us even more flexibility to maintain our process without the need to migrate from one process definition to another. I just wanted to share that extra thing here. We weren't sure we could make it for the final release, but I'm happy this is now included also. Alright, so we saw the form live updates, and last thing here that everybody can benefit from are the extensible REST APIs. So the extensible REST APIs will allow us to create our custom endpoints for our APIs. This is written in Groovy, so it's kind of a Java language. It's secured because we can specify some access rules to who can call the REST APIs. It's also modular, so basically you can create several resources in different extension points, or you can group more resources into one extension point. And last thing, which is really important, it's portable from one environment to another. So instead of having a full application that exposes your REST APIs, a dedicated application, here you'll be able to deploy at any time and live update also some your custom REST APIs. This is basically just going to be a zip file that you can upload in the Bonita portal as an administrator, and there you go, you have your REST extensions available. So you'll be able to configure them live without having to set up a full development environment, create a server, etc., etc. So this is really something helpful. And why have we done this? Well, that's because the REST APIs whether they are custom or the ones provided out of the box by Bonita, or the BDM REST APIs. All of these are going to be used more and more, especially in the forms and pages we are going to create. We'll no longer have the same development scenario, so we'll not go through the Groovy scripts or Java code or connectors to fetch business data in our forms. We'll be able to directly request business data in our forms through REST API calls. And when you will learn about how the UI designer is used, you'll see that it's even simpler to do that. It's less error prone. So how does this extensible REST API work? Basically, you have the Bonita REST API's base URL here, so that's bonita/API. Then you have, of course, the standard REST APIs, which are packaged out of the box. So we have the BPM API, which is used to collect information about tasks, about cases, about process definitions. You have the identity API, which is used for users, groups, roles, etc. The BDMs that are used to expose your business objects. So for example, if you have a process that deals with procurement, you have a BDM for procurement request. Here you have also access to your custom queries, so you can fetch your BDMs with REST API call. And next to that now, to the standard REST APIs, you'll have your extension point here, where you'll be able to create some extended REST APIs. So for example, here if I create a custom REST API called myAPI, I will be able to call it with bonita/API/extensions/myAPI. And there I can serve whatever resource I want. So that's the principle behind the extensible REST API framework. Alright, so this is really for the quick overview of the main new features. It is now time for me to conclude this presentation. So I'll just give you a big summary of what we saw in this presentation. What I shared with you today is the vision of Bonita BPM 7 and the roadmap beyond the version 7, so for the 7th series itself. I have shared with you the new concepts and the new tooling we will make available in this new release. What is still to come? Well, it's pretty close actually now. We'll have the Bonita BPM 7.0 release next week. And in a couple more weeks we'll also have another webinar which will be more practical, in which we're going to show really the product in action. So stay tuned for this second webinar. Here you really learn how to use the UI designer, how to configure contracts, maybe how to create also custom REST APIs. We'll share the dates with you shortly. So thank you for having followed this webinar. Well, thank you very much for attending again, and well, stay tuned. You'll hear from us on next Thursday. Hopefully we'll release version 7. Thanks again, and have a very good day. Goodbye.